as far um as far as like what we offer to florists and retail and like the e-commerce like opportunities that we have. So just to give you a little bit about us, we're in Columbus, Ohio. We've been farming since 2006, which means that this is our 18th year, which 16th, yeah, 18th year, which is really crazy. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. It started out just Steve and I, and now we had 28 employees last summer, so has grown to a pretty big team. We sell to florists, we have retail sales, we sell to grocery stores. So I'll talk a little bit more about the sales like breakdown here soon. So I just shared my screen, so we'll start the presentation. If you have questions as we go through, feel free to pop them in the chat box. And the CAF folks are going to be like monitoring that. And we'll answer some questions throughout, but there'll also be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So if there's something more detailed or that I didn't cover, like feel free to ask in there. So yeah, direct-to-consumer sales stories, tips, and e-commerce. Those are some hydrangeas in the background from us. Let's see. All right, so we just had a baby last year. So this year has been, the past couple years have been a really, really different for us and the team, just as we figure out how to like, fit that into farm life. So it's like a whole new adventure. I always said I was like farm mama. So with all the employees that we have, now I'm a mama to a little baby human. So we actually just moved off the farm. So it's going to be another year that's really different. We've lived on the farm since the beginning. But we have some rented plots. We've got about 20 acres in production in the field. Some of it is rented. We're losing access to that. And so that started the search for purchasing land. So we just purchased some land that's about 20 minutes from the home farm and moved there. So yeah, it'll be different having all these different places to go. Okay, so a little bit about our sales breakdown. So a lot of this has changed over the years, especially with COVID, like really adapting the business. So our goal is to kind of have like a diversified so that if something happens to one of the structures, that one of the other ones can kind of absorb the difference. So we used to do weddings, we used to do farmers markets, and kind of where we've landed as far as what we're doing right now, 46% florist sales, 10% retail sales, 18% grocery sales, 19% tuber sales. So like Kaylee, who introduced me, said that's how she found us, was online tuber sales. And then 7% is shipping charges collected. So that's actually just kind of passes through us because it goes to UPS or FedEx. So we started shipping to florists before we shipped to retail. And then COVID changed that and we started shipping to retail. But basically all that money is going, that 7% is going to like FedEx, UPS, or Southwest Cargo. So the tuber sales are online, our florist sales are online, and our retail sales are kind of split. We have a farm stand here on the farm. So it's just set up like a little self-serve like shed. People can Venmo or PayPal or pay cash. So about half of those retail sales are online. And that's actually gone down over the past few years. COVID, our retail sales were a much higher percentage of our sales, but I think once people were out and about again, they did less of like buying the flowers online and more of like going to the market or coming to the farm stand. We used to also be one of the few flower farmers like in our area, and the flower farming industry has really grown. So I think when we left the farmers market, there are other new growers that have come into that space. So, which is fine. There's plenty of flower business to go around. So our retail sales started with farmers markets. That's where we built our brand and like put a face to the name. It was a great place to start. This picture is one of the first like markets that we did. So with bouquets, Asian pears, bunches of zinnias, and soap that I made. So when we started out, we had kind of a homestead vibe. So our idea was to live off the land. So we had pigs, ducks, chickens. We did soap, I can't, everything. Um, and the flowers just became our niche. So we've been Sunny Meadows Flower Farm since the beginning, and people would be like, "You have tomatoes?" And we're like, "Yeah, we've had them all season." I just didn't like understand that it was, yeah, which is fine because now we've been 100% flowers since about year 7. So it's been a while just in the flower world. And then the other picture is of our farm stand. It's one of those like prefab sheds that we bought, that we stock with flowers out there. We are about 6 miles from downtown Columbus, so it's close enough that people can come out to us. And then our tubers online is kind of how we started with our e-commerce situation. So at first we used to use Big Cartel, and we maybe only had maybe 10 tuber varieties or something like that for sale. Once we had a more diverse offering and needed more robust like reports and just like options and stuff, Shopify became a better option for us. So we moved everything to Shopify, and since then that's like where everything is hosted. So our retail and our wholesale, we have 2 separate stores because the wholesale site is protected, so that you have to have a password to log in or have to have an account. Basically, we have to get your vendor's license in order for you to access that. And that just protects our florists so that they're able to charge what they need to charge for the flowers to, be able to make their profit margin. So just some considerations if you're thinking about, do you want to sell retail or do you want to sell wholesale? So retail we find is a higher price point per item, but the customers buy a smaller number of bunches. So it's a great place to build community, start building your brand, have good signage. Some of the cons for us were required like weekend staffing. So when we were doing flowers for weddings, it got to a point where, we were doing multiple weddings in a weekend and 2 or 3 farmers markets. And so it was just a lot of logistics. And then the wholesale considerations, it is a lower price point, but the customers can buy in bulk. But what we've found over the years as we've gotten into more wholesale is that it is less direct contact with the end consumer. So like at the farmer's market, you would have that direct relationship with people who are receiving the flowers and like enjoying them. And the deeper wholesale you get, the less connected to that you are going to be. So like for us now that we're shipping and we're selling online, the idea is frictionless sales. The idea is the inventory is live. People don't have to email us and like wait for a response. But on the other end of that is that the relationship building is a little bit different, because we're not, Steve and I used to directly deliver to all of these places. And now some of our best customers are people that we've never met because we're online and we're shipping. So just kind of getting used to that. For us, we say no news is good news because a lot of people don't go out of their way to give us like the positive feedback, but they'll let you know if something didn't make it, or if like if a box gets lost or something like that, just kind of having to deal with it on the other end. So it just feels a little bit different. So what's right for you is kind of up to, what you want to do. Other wholesale considerations, you may need sleeves, UPCs, case sizes, larger delivery vehicles, the administrative tasks of invoicing, accounts receivable, and that you need projected seasonal availability, which we'll talk about that kind of at the end of like sort of how I would choose to get started if you were a newer grower and you were trying to build your florist business or try and figure out what you're going to offer throughout the seasons. Other outlets, we kind of talked about the farm stand. And then for our retail sales, we were doing just shipping during COVID times. And then we hired 2 delivery drivers that were really good. And so to fill their hours, we started offering like local deliveries. So we now have delivery or pickup or shipping as far as our options for the retail sales. Okay, so systems we currently use, I've talked about Shopify being a retail and wholesale, like separate stores. We are also invoicing in QuickBooks. So we have some florists who will never use Shopify. We've even tried to like incentivize people by giving them a discount or like something, and it doesn't. We have some florists who just prefer a phone call or a text, which is fine. And then we currently use Venmo or PayPal in the farm stand. We tried to use Square for our invoicing system, and it just was not enough for what we needed. The reports that we do a lot of sales by customer and sales by product to kind of look back at the year and figure out like what went well or if a customer was up or down, and the Square reports just weren't enough for us. So we only really use Square if someone comes like a retail customer and like needs to pay with a credit card because they didn't know kind of how the farm stand works. We have an Excel inventory system that was custom built for us, and that is how we manage our harvest list. So the orders come into us from Shopify via QuickBooks, phone, text, like however that is. And then the inventory system is kind of where it all comes together. It puts it, you know, the number of bunches by product by day that is sold, and then that helps us create the harvest list from day to day. And then we have a lot of Excel sheets for planning. So if you've heard me talk at any other farm conferences, we're really big on the Excel sheets. I did not become a farmer because I liked to work in Excel sheets, but that seems to be kind of my role here on the farm. That's what winter mostly is for me. And then that's why I'm usually excited when flowers bloom in the spring, and like when flowers need me, I can be out of the office for a little bit. Okay, so direct to consumer sales, that's like what we're here to talk about. So we started with tuber sales, and this started because when we had veggies, we had a CSA. And the CSA is where they like buy in the winter, and you kind of have that income in the winter heading into spring. Well, when we quit veggies and we quit the CSA, we were kind of like, well, what are we gonna do in the months where we don't have flowers? So that's how tuber sales started. It for us it's important for like employee retention and extending the season, just like leveling out the cash flow. So that was our like motivation with the tuber sales. And now is just a huge part of our business, like with dahlias, selling dahlias as cuts and also selling the tubers. Dahlias are definitely our number one product. So we also sell holiday items direct to consumer. We have a holiday open house here, but we also do online sales. How we offer holiday items has changed. So during COVID times, because we didn't have the open house, we did kind of like a customizable, we were using this app that like bold product options that kind of let you choose. You want to add a ribbon, you want to add sticks, you want to add berries. But what we realized last year was that what people wanted to buy was the finished products. So instead of letting them custom build them, we kind of created a set that was like a wreath, a garland, and like 2 swags or something like that, and kind of offered it as like a full package. And that seemed to go over really well with the customers, and we had a few different options. So yeah, so the how things have been offered to our customers also has changed. A lot of it also is kind of figuring out how Shopify's brain works and how you can get those options to be listed, whether that be with an app or, you know, creating separate items, using the variants. So there's multiple different ways. And I feel like every time we try to launch something new or like a new item or new collection or something, then there is kind of some brainstorming of figuring out like what looks best on the customers and also like how it functions on the back end. So you've got 2 kind of things to figure out as you're creating those things. Spring at your door was what we started with during COVID. So, COVID hit in March, I think, of 2020, and we heat our greenhouses. So like we have field production in the summer months, but in the winter months, we have flowers from about March through November, and then we do Christmas wreaths, and then we don't really have flowers January, February. But we're heating greenhouses to get that March production. So we were kind of like, what are we going to do? We've been growing in these heated greenhouses all winter. How do we get these flowers out to people? So spring at your door is, they get 3 bunches of flowers. It's grower's choice, and it goes for 6 weeks. It's you can buy a single box or you can buy the subscription. The subscription is 6 weeks, which it covers from Easter to Mother's Day. This year's a little bit different because Easter's so early, so it's actually 7 weeks, but typically it would be a 6-week like subscription that covers the spring holidays. All of our fresh flowers that are offered on the retail site are grower's choice. So it's like they buy a deluxe bouquet, but they don't get to choose like what's in it or what it looks like or color palette or anything like that. It kind of is just like we say like it's an adventure through the season, where like the bouquet is an item that we can offer throughout, but what's in it is going to be determined based on what's going on like in the greenhouses or in the field. This year we launched cuttings as a new like collection. So we're selling unrooted willow cuttings and then also rooted dahlia and mum cuttings. We sell fall bulbs, ranunculus, anemones, and tulips, and then merchandise. So really the merchandise isn't a super big seller. It's more like we typically buy something for our employees around Christmas time and get extra and put those on there. So there are some people out there repping Sunny Meadows gear, but that's not the biggest like thing that's being sold.
Gretel, just to pause for a second, we wanted to show the survey results from the first 2 questions really quick, so you get a sense of who's here. So I'm gonna do that.
Do you need me to stop sharing my screen in order to do that?
I don't know, Maria, does the survey close?
Yeah, the survey results are up. So for the first question, how many years have you been farming? The most people, 56% of the attendees said 1 to 5 years. 18% are just starting, and then we have people, 21% that have been farming from 6 to 10 years. And the main sales outlets for the viewers today is mostly through florists, farmers market, and other.
All right, cool.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mom. And go ahead, Gretel. Sorry for the.
Oh, there they are. I see it now. Yeah, so we've got some veterans in the crowd. Cool. All right, and some CSA folks too. Yeah, so all right. So tuber sales, we start selling in November when we ship them in the spring. I was talking about, it helps with cash flow, year-round work for employees, which means employee retention. One of the things that we recognize is just the liability of pre-selling something, kind of like with a CSA, like they're buying into the farm, and if you have crop failures, there are things that happen with farming, which are unfortunate. The hardest thing about it is having to kind of like disappoint customers. So with the tubers, it's like storage issues, having to offer a refund or a sub, and then also kind of just figuring out what quantities are available for selling and planting. This is an example of a spring at your door. So it's got 3 bunches, 2 bunches of tulips and a bunch of ranunculus. And we've already kind of talked about how we quit the farmers market during COVID times and then offered this option. We also used our retail sales online to do, like, if we had tulips and ranunculus blooming and not enough for the farm stand and the markets weren't open. So we started doing like a pre-order pickup at the farm. And the pre-order pickup actually like rolled into when farmers market time was happening with COVID. They were doing a pre-order pickup like drive-through. So we were already kind of set up with the online system to make that happen. So for us, it was a little bit more seamless than for some farmers who weren't quite set up yet with an online store. And that's when shipping nationwide began for retail. So this is an example of one of the holiday items that I was talking about, where it kind of is, we call it Merry and Bright. This is our most popular like option for holiday time. It's like just mixed greens, eucalyptus, and some berries, kind of a traditional look. We don't use like bows and glittery stuff typically. And so this was part of the rebuilt like offerings that we had. And I think it really worked out for us to have kind of like finished product ones instead of ones that people were expected to kind of customize and make their own decisions. We used to do wreath making classes and like have classes on the farm, but we don't do that anymore. Okay, fresh flower sales. We sell by the week number. So this happens on the retail and on the wholesale site. So because, you know, they can choose a bouquet, but they can choose delivery a lot of different weeks. Then that's kind of how we keep track, and for florists as well. So they choose a product for throughout the season, and you know, just like for example, the spring at your door is only available in the spring, so like from when it started until typically end of May. We do a peony option. That's something else that like we don't launch the peonies because we've had years that the peonies die over the winter from a late frost or a freeze or something. We don't launch those until we know for sure that the peonies are going to bloom. So some of these options are being sold in the winter and then they're like shipping out in the spring. Others of them are just a little bit more of a live availability thing. We don't like do, you know, on Saturday at noon, like things will be live, like what's available fresh flowers for next week. It kind of is like the availability, like just lives on the website. They can do a subscription or single boxes and then like no color choice. So this is one of the like deluxe bouquets that we have. So our wholesale shop that we do with Shopify, sell direct to florists. It launched in February of 2018. It took us about 2 years to build the catalog. So like we started the, if you are a flower grower and you're familiar with the ASCFG, the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers, they tried to have like kind of a Shopify guy build and build some of these functionalities into the website. So we started with that, but a lot of the photos were like from seed companies, and I don't know if you've seen some of the seed company photos, but they're not always the prettiest. And so just kind of building based off of our crop plan, the specific varieties of celosia that we had, the like taking good photos. And so we had been working on this, and I got sick with Lyme disease, so it kind of took us a little bit longer to like get everything ready. And then we launched it like in time for the wholesalers to be closed for COVID. And so and we were nationally shipping, so it all kind of lined up. Our process with the florist they can see 3 weeks of availability. So what's challenging about this if you're a new grower is how do you figure out what you think is going to be available? We do weekly field walks. And so on Wednesdays, Julia and I walk the farm and we figure out, you know, this is gonna be available next week and then like kind of the next 2 weeks. I don't list anything until it starts to bloom. So in the spring is one of the trickiest times because you get excited and you see the buds, but for us in Columbus, we're pretty cloudy and we can go from being, I think last week there was a day it was in the 70s and there was a night in the 20s. So like it's pretty varied in the spring. So like you get excited and you post availability and then things aren't actually available. So we wait until things are actually blooming to add them. And we send an email via MailChimp every Wednesday. That lets our florists know that the website is updated. And that they can order for the next 3 weeks. So we do not accept any pre-orders. Like if somebody's like, I have a wedding in May and I want this, we create a seasonal projected availability that has by month what we think is going to be available, but we don't promise any quantities of inventory until that like 3 weeks out point, basically. So we have pickup options for the florist. We use an app called Pick Easy. It allows them to pick the day of the week and time. So we have multiple farm locations. And so a Monday morning pickup is really challenging for us because we don't work on Sundays, we need to harvest it Monday morning, bring it back to the home farm. So Mondays they can't pick up until after lunch. So the pickups start at 1 o'clock. We had set up to use the code local pickup on the retail site that removes the shipping costs. We used to do tuber pickups. This year we just did one weekend is the only time you can pick up, because we found sometimes it's hard for the office to kind of like manage that. And then delivery options, just thinking about the considerations of like having a driver, having vehicles. And what we found is that we are competing with ourselves at the grocery stores that we sell to, and like people that would typically come to the farm stand. So the market in Columbus, we kind of had saturated, which is why we chose to start shipping, so that we could expand our offerings. We also we're in Columbus, which is central Ohio, and within a 2.5-hour drive, we go to Cleveland once a week and Cincinnati once a week. With Pick Easy, we're able to set up multiple delivery zones and have different rates and minimums for each zone. So, the local delivery is going to cost less than us delivering to Cleveland or Cincinnati. So utilizing the apps. And so that's, I think, sometimes what's unfortunate with Shopify is that some of the stuff isn't built in to what the website is capable of. And so utilizing like apps to kind of add on services, like we have a subscription thing that we use that's called Paywhirl that we're not totally convinced about yet, because it's built kind of more for recurring subscriptions where someone would every month get billed, and that's not really how our flowers work. So we haven't quite figured that part of the Shopify out yet with the subscriptions. So we launched Shopify in 2020. So now with Shopify, we are like, that's the biggest sales outlet for the florist sales. And the pricing is based on the shipping zone. We created new shipping zones this year. That was another thing kind of working with within Shopify, is that the items have weights assigned to them, and then that's how they populate the shipping. So sometimes you kind of have to play with what the weight is of the product in order to get it into the right category. So sometimes it's not actually the weight, it kind of is the number that you choose and then sort of a system that you create. That is one of the things that has been kind of challenging to figure out, like how Shopify works. Okay, so if you were just getting started, where would you start? So I would create a projected seasonal availability. So how we started with this was we would take, what the crop plan was and what we thought we were going to have, compare that to actuals. So we would start by recording the buckets that we harvested each day to create an availability. So that way you can track like, which month did this thing start blooming. And this has some of our pricing on here. This is what we would send to our florist. So every year we create the projected seasonal availability, and that gets sent to them in the winter and is a resource on our website. And so that they can plan, okay, I have a wedding in April, so I think I could use anemones, delphiniums, Dusty Miller. And we also created one of these availabilities for the farm stand, so people can kind of see like, oh, spring at your doors offer ranunculus is this week. And because we don't do like pre-orders for the florist, they can kind of use this for their planning and then just sort of keep a watch out for Shopify. Build a great website. So just resource for answering your questions, tell your story of the farm. Brand recognition. We've got a lot of FAQ pages, which have just kind of been gathered through the years of all of the questions that we get asked about specific products. And we do hire someone, like we have someone on retainer that we like can ask all of these website questions, like a web developer. And so he helps us, you know, we try to do as much in-house as we can do, but there's definitely things that we encounter that are kind of like above what we're able to do, or things that need like coded in. And so just having somebody as a resource is definitely like worth it. They built our website many years ago when we started, and so our business has really grown since then. The people we use is called the Wonder Jam, but there's also, I'm sure, other like resources for that kind of for these kinds of questions, and like figuring out the different functionalities that work for you. I also have somebody on staff that we call her the digital content coordinator, but basically, like, once the business grew to a certain point, it was like I was spending too much of my time like doing Instagram and doing some of the social media. And she is like hybrid too. She can work out in the barn and like help me take photos and things like that. So when I started, I took a photography class, and I mean, I took photography in high school and stuff like that too, and I've always loved taking photos, but I think actually figuring out kind of like what your style is helps build your brand. Make sure you're using photos of your face. I know that we're like dirty and sweaty, but it's worth it for people to like see who you are. And I took a class and someone said, you know, think about the three things for someone. Think about the three words you want someone to think of when they look at your page. So like for me, it's like colorful, abundant, and wild. So like we try to show, you know, pictures like this, like is like the juicy stuff with just the blooms, but we also try to show like the dirt and, you know, how much work it is. And like pictures of truckloads, things like that. We typically will hire a photographer maybe once every couple years just to come out, take pictures of the field, take pictures of the team, take some pictures of Steve and I, because typically I'm the one behind the camera, so I'm not like we're not often in the pictures together. You won't regret hiring somebody to come out and sort of capture it. What I appreciate about having somebody else come is just kind of like seeing the farm through their eyes, because sometimes when you are dirty and sweaty and it's hard work, it's hard to kind of like remember how beautiful everything is that you're doing. So and then the algorithm is always changing. So it used to be armloads of flowers, now it's more behind the scenes and videos. So we kind of just quit trying to figure it out and sort of just started doing our own thing as far as like what we want to post and what we're trying to communicate with our customers. So these are just some examples. And when you have lots of flower heads, just like doing fun things. Building an email list. So that started at the farmer's market. We have a link to email, sign up on our website. It's our best way to communicate with our folks. So our florists get a weekly newsletter and our retail people get a weekly newsletter. So it talks about what's going on at the farm a little bit, you know, if there's any new options, like with the dahlia tubers, we kind of launched these like color palettes. And so it has been like an essential piece of the direct to consumer sales, like especially for the retail folks. You can track, we use MailChimp, and you can track what the actual like sales are from an email. Like you can see the revenue that came from that campaign. And so it's definitely been worth it to use this as a communication tool with people. I think especially if you are doing online sales, then it is a little bit more behind the scenes. And so this is kind of your chance to like build that relationship with people. So yeah, we make sure to include farm news, resources, building your voice, building the catalog. So these are some of the photos that we would use in our florist catalog. So we wanted to have like continuity in how the pictures looked. So you could kind of tell like the flower size, and the color. So the most important thing when you're taking pictures of flowers is having things be true to color, because we used to sell stuff by color palettes where we would just be like, oh, there's dahlias that are coral. But then what we realized is like some people's like definition of what that means is totally different. And so this being able to see the pictures, then they like can see exactly like, oh, that's like what I would consider salmon or peach. It's not coral. Yeah, so it has taken us a long time to kind of get to this point of having the photos. You know, you get busy and you don't have time. And so it's like we still don't have great pictures of mums, or like the tulips last year, the goal was to get good pictures of tulips. So like our tulips are green, you know, they're still tight when they get picked. And so like, and then they get sold and they're out the door. And then we're like, oh, we didn't get any pictures of that variety. So like making sure that we're reserving some of them to let them bloom out, to be able to get pictures so that people can actually see like what the flowers look like when they're going to open. And then utilizing social media for marketing. So we have a Google Drive, like a Google sheet that we use that plans out the day and then also the like week numbers across the top, so we can sort of plan what we're going to talk about. Because in the winter especially, it's hard to like consistently like have content. So whether it's like behind the scenes, this was a giveaway that we did. So like, you know, getting people to comment or tag a friend, like whatever you want the like requirements to be. This one says tag 2 friends, like this post, and follow Sunny Meadows. So, and then the person like won the giveaway. So just thinking about like engagement with people, that's why I hired someone, so that they could be kind of like liking comments and commenting back to people and handling the DMs, because that's also part of it. Like when you are when you're posting stuff, the engagement part of it is a really important piece of that. Yeah, so we have Instagram, Facebook, and we started a TikTok this year too. So it's a lot to keep up with. Again, I know that's why like people didn't become, that's not why people became farmers. Is because they wanted to like deal with social media and stuff, but it really is an important piece of the marketing part of it. Let's see, we have a few things in the chat. So if anybody has any questions, are you only able to sell by shipping on Shopify? How do you handle local orders? Does it always charge a shipping fee? No, there is an option. I was gonna see if I could pull up my Shopify store. There is an option for local delivery. So you can choose, or for pickup. So you can choose those different options. It doesn't have to be shipping. So like I said in the beginning, when we started with the pre-order pickup was kind of how we started with the flowers, and then kind of it got rolled into the farmers market was doing like a pickup drive-through. So people were able to order for pickup in that way. Thank you. Somebody said the colors on our dahlia tuber store are so good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Love the giveaway idea for customer engagement. Yeah. So just trying to think about ways like, you know, since we do sell dahlia tubers, like soon we're going to be launching a, sorry, I'm going to pull up our Shopify store too. Soon we're going to be launching like a, you know, post pictures of the dahlia tubers that you bought from us. And then like do a giveaway that way too. Let me see.
Gretel, while you're pulling that up, somebody submitted a question in the Q&A box that's, are all of your online sales things that you grow, produce on your own farm, or do you buy, resell tubers or seeds as example as a way to subsidize your farm's profitability?
So all our tubers, the tubers and the ranunculus are grown on farm. The anemones and the tulips are bought in. And all of the like flowers are ours too. So I know there are some farms that will supplement by like, you know, offering Valentine's Day arrangements or something like that when they don't like grow them. And I think that that's for us, you know, I think we started, there were some times, especially when I was doing weddings, like there were times that we were definitely ordering more stuff in to help supplement as the like farm grew. But I think what's challenging about that is just like you don't have quality control over like what the stuff's going to look like when it comes to you, or like you get shorted on something, but you've already sold it to somebody else, and then kind of having to deal with that sometimes can be a challenge. So this is our retail store here. We just rebuilt this with a new theme. So you can see there's some things featured on here. This video is one of the things we had a professional like come out and do. Got some like drone footage of the field, of the dahlia fields. Just talking a little bit about our story and then featuring a couple items. So right now what we're selling is that spring at your door service. Let me see, I can go to one of the items. So this is, if you look at like fresh flower boxes, you can choose. So the spring at your door, this is where the week numbers I was talking about. So this is like somebody can choose, they want it this is week 10, correct? Yeah, this is week 10. If you don't operate on week numbers, that's for us is like everything is our crop plan, our florist offerings. It just makes it so that it's transferable to like the next year. And so they can choose here, they can choose a one-time delivery or a prepaid like 6-week series. And so they can choose the week number here. So that's like it. Oh, mom's birthday is April 24th. So then I'll choose that week and like check out with just that item in the cart. And so that is utilizing the variants kind of on the back end. So I'm just going to show you what this item looks like on the back end. Just while we have some time. If there's any other questions, feel free to.
Yeah, there's a couple more. Yeah, why don't you go with what you're about to say now, and then we can switch.
Okay. So then this is kind of what the back end looks like, the spring at your door delivery service, you know, creating the description for the items, adding the photos. These tags on this side are kind of like how they get pulled into the different collections, and the collections are what are at the top of the menu. Then you create the different variants. So this is like, you know, seeing the week numbers, disregard the SKUs that are in here because we tried to do a service that automatically put orders into QuickBooks that didn't work. And then just making sure whenever we create new products, we're making sure this SEO stuff at the bottom is also correct. So sometimes if you make a copy of an item, then it becomes like it says like copy of Suncrest Dahlia. And then it's like this search engine listing is how you make sure you're at the top or, you know, near the top. The ones that are at the very top are paid for, but like that you're near the top or that it's just a searchable item. So that's why for us, like when we're selling dahlia tubers, we don't like take the tubers completely off of the website. Will like, even if they're not available, it still says coming soon or it says sold out. And that's because we want it to still be available if somebody was to search for that item. Yeah, I can answer a couple more questions.
Great, thanks. And then while we switch to a couple more questions, Maria's going to launch the last 2 quick question poll, so folks can take a look at that while Gretel continues to answer questions. One of these questions is more related to Shopify and says, can you explain a little bit more about how orders from Shopify or other channels of communication funnel into a spreadsheet for harvest lists?
Yes. So I can actually show you our online system. This is something that's been built for us. What's it called? B356. By an Excel person. Let me see. I'm gonna need to share this screen. Share Excel. So if you know any people that love Excel and know how to build macros, this is what we created. So an item, it looks like an order form, but this has the florist name, the order date, delivery, the ship, delivery, or pickup. And then currently these are all the items that are like in season. So you can put, I can just do one so that we're. So then I can just go in and say I want like 5 of each thing, not 55. And then log this order. The delivery date is in the past. Sorry, I guess it is the 5th. Oh my gosh. I guess it's not going to let me. Well, I'll just show you the next sheet. So it gets spit into the sales info sheet that we've created. So this is all, it's going to look really complex and confusing because there's a lot going on in this sheet. But so, you know, it has the florist name, the delivery date, when the order went in. I mean, we've got a lot of volume going through here. This is our product database. So this is like every flower that we grow, every color. So I can filter what's in season and it'll just show what's currently blooming right now. So this is just an example of, this is what the orders get spit into. So this is the week of February 26th. This is how many anemones are sold, like of each color. So this is a past. Oh, that's why it's March. I was saying 2/10/24. Sorry, it's March. So this is showing like what the sales were. Not very much was blooming. Last week kind of was the beginning. And so that helps me create the harvest list. So we've built lots of different sheets into this just for our own use. Here is where I can like take inventory so I can enter what was harvested. This sheet is the excess inventory. So if somebody, this could be a whole class of its own, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the excess inventory list is what we use to sell off of. This in-season inventory is what I use to assign like harvesters. And then it helps us create these harvest lists. So that's showing, you know, I mean, you can see how big it is during the season. It's a lot of products. Go in and enter the harvest. And this was something that has been built over the years of figuring out like, oh, I wish it could do this, or I wish that there was more functionality like in this way, so that we could have it pull up a master delivery sheet or something. And then I was just going to share real quick the Florist website while we. So this is the Florist website here. So this one is also built in Shopify. And then you can see that there's 3 weeks of availability. So it's currently week 10. Tomorrow is Wednesday. So tomorrow we'll launch week 11, 12, and 13 will be available. Week 13 is Easter. So it's kind of stressful to have to be launching Easter stuff when stuff hasn't even started blooming yet. But we've got getting started, a lot of like guidelines. We've got florist resources that we've built, which is like our week number calendar, the projected seasonal availability, all of our guidelines. We've also created catalogs of the things that we have a lot of different colors, just so that they can kind of see like all the different ranunculus colors together. Yeah, so this has taken a lot of time and I'm logged in, so, oh, nope. Let me just log in real quick and then you'll be able to see so this is week 10. So like this is what's currently available. These are the products here. There's not a ton available, just kind of the beginning of the season. They can click into a product. They can choose those 3 weeks from the breakdown and add it to their cart. So the idea was with this was we heard from our florist, like, you know, I see the wholesaler as a business, but I see you guys as people. Like, I don't want to text you at Sunday at 5 a.m. or whatever, but I'll text the wholesaler then. And so we were kind of like, well, how can we make ourselves more available so that it is just, you know, they put the kids to bed and on a Sunday night, that's the only time that they have to order their flowers. Like, this makes it so that inventory is live, and they don't have to wait for a response from us. So you can see here, they've got local delivery, store pickup, or shipping. We had, this is something we did have coded in, the substitute of equal color or value or no substitute. So sometimes people are flexible and they can take something in that color palette. Other times they have to have absolutely that flower or they don't want anything else. And then they choose, let's just choose local delivery. So our local delivery day is Wednesday. So this is what the Pick Easy app has built into. We can say, you know, a local person can order only for Wednesday delivery, or a Cleveland person can only order on Thursday for delivery. Cincinnati can only order on Tuesday for delivery. Like, or for shipping, we can say they have to have their order in 2 days before. So those are all things that we've kind of built into the back end of this. So, and then we have a few different options as far as like how people can check out. So that's kind of, we built the dried flowers as their own like shop because we found they were kind of like clouding up the like weekly stuff, especially when we have like a lot of flowers. So every dahlia is listed like by its own variety. They can also go into the week numbers. They can filter by in and out of stock. So it is a lot to like build it all in, but the like success we've had with Shopify, I feel like has definitely been worth it for us. There's definitely some headaches, but you know, we've just worked together and kind of figure it out, or just try to not be afraid to like ask other people when it's beyond your pay grade of kind of like, how do I make it do this? Let's see, were there a couple more questions just like while we're...
Yeah, you touched on a number of them with your demonstrations just now of the front end and back end. Thank you for that. I don't know if you want, there was a question a little bit earlier that was talking to like size of the farm and managing a lot of employees and some on the like the business side versus the production side. If you have anything you want to share on that.
So we have in the office brain trust is what we call ourselves. There's 5 of us. And the barn crew so our business is kind of separated. Everybody, the barn crew and the field crew both harvest. And then every morning we harvest when we're in the season. Right now we're kind of like out because it's flowers are just starting to bloom. But during the season, the barn crew and the field crew will harvest in the morning. We lunch, and then after lunch, the barn crew does all of like the processing, making bouquets, getting flowers out the door. So my team is kind of responsible for everything from harvest through sales. And then Steve, my husband, is responsible for like basically from seed to finished product. So the field crew does all of the like planting, seeding, weeding, bed prep, like all of that kind of stuff. So we have 2 delivery drivers. There's currently 6 folks on the barn crew, and I think we just had a few more people start. So right now there's, I think, 12 people on the field crew. So yeah, it's a lot of folks to manage. That's mostly what my like job is now, is just kind of like getting all the right people in all the right places and just transitioning them from like job to job and facilitating like the things that they need. In Julia, the person that's a digital content creator, she's also helping me do the florist availability. We're kind of the connection between the few teams. So like we're figuring out what's in the field and what's being used in bouquets, which means this is available. And yeah, so we're kind of like the connective tissue between all of that. Yeah, I mean, talking about employees is something else that like could be its own situation.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we're at time here, so we want to respect your time, Gretel. And thanks to everyone for all the questions. And Gretel, thanks a bunch for this fantastic presentation and being so open to sharing and yeah, demoing things here on the back end. This has been really wonderful. Yeah, and people know they can find you on your website and social media and whatnot. So thanks everyone. This recording will be sent out to everybody who is registered, and yeah, we'll follow up with that email. Any last words you wanted to say, Gretel?
No, just thank you for coming. We appreciate you listening. I know there was a lot of information, so we share a lot on the Sunny Meadows Flower Farm Instagram page, kind of more like behind the scenes stuff, and talk a little bit more about the functionality of the farm. And we also just found out we will be speaking at the ASCFG conference at Clara Joyce Flowers in August. So if you're a flower farmer, maybe we'll see you there.
Congrats, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye. Thanks.